It's Not a Boy, chapter 15. And this chapter is called The Picnic. We used to go on picnics when I was a little girl. A crowd of us. But it wasn't a picnic like you might think. It wasn't a picnic with a picnic basket that you can see behind me, full of wonderful things to eat. We went with nothing, except a penny or two in our pockets. This is how it worked. As you know, Auntie Vera had another baby after Terry and Stewie were born. It was a little girl, a very welcome little girl after two boys, and she was called Bonnie. She was sweet and pretty and, well, just Bonnie. She had pale white skin with rosy cheeks and bright blonde hair that shone as if the sunshine was glowing out from it. We carried Bonnie everywhere. We took her round our farm and played with her all day when we weren't at school. She joined us in all our games, and we used to rush back from school and see who could be the first one to pick her up and hug her and carry her around. But one Saturday, when Bonnie was still a toddler, we decided to go for a picnic where our village church was. To get there, you had to walk along our main road and then walk up one of our fields called Green Hill. It wasn't really a hill, it was just a little mound, but our land was so flat that it looked like a hill to us. Auntie Vera didn't want us to take Bonnie up Green Hill because it was too far away, and anyway, the little girl would not be able to walk all that way, and she would be too heavy for us to carry. Bonnie was very sad to see us going, and big tears welled up in her beautiful eyes. "We'll bring you some of our picnic bag, and you can come when you're older," I told her, as the tears spilled over onto her rosy cheeks. And so we set off, Terry, Stewie and Gwendy and me, and we waved cheerio to the crying Bonnie, who stood in our lane with her arms still held out. She was hoping for us to turn round and go back and give her a hug and carry her with us. I can tell you it was very hard to turn our backs on her, but we did, and we set up our lane onto our main road, leaving her behind. I was very sad at first, thinking of Bonnie's tears. But then, much to my shame later on, I forgot all about her, because I had been allowed to take my bike, and I was so excited. It was my new bike. Not really new. It was my old one, painted up, and I'd been given it as a Christmas present. The only thing that was new was that there was a bell on it. Nobody else had a bell. And Uncle Sid said to go on the main road with our bikes, they had to be worthy. And he said you had to have a bell. And I was the only one that had a bell, so I was the only one allowed to take my bike. We took it in turns to ride, but Terry grumbled because it was a girl's bike and it didn't have a crossbar. When it was your turn, you had to ride to a telegraph pole and then get off and leave the bike on the side of the road and start to walk, and then the next person got there and they could ride to the next pole, and so on. I rode first because it was my bike, and I noticed that when it was Terry's turn, he shot off on it at top speed. He rode very well, even though it didn't have a crossbar for boys. The rest of us ran along as best we could, and you could hear our wellies slapping on our legs and our money jangling in our pockets. We were going to Gum village shop to buy our picnic. I had 2 pennies that I'd saved for so long I couldn't remember where they'd come from. I kept them in my old cracker box under my bed with my charm bracelet. They were old and black, and I often held them in my hand until they became quite warm. They both had Queen Victoria's head on, and I liked that because my name was Victoria. One was when she was young and had pretty ribbons flying in her hair, and the other when she was an old lady and had scarves on her head and a serious look on her face as if she was going to die very soon. Terry was the best runner, and he was up front. Then came our Gwendy, then Stewie, and then me. It was a hot day, and I was longing for a drink of sarsaparilla. That's what you would get when you went on a picnic from our shop. Fizzy, sour sarsaparilla. Round our village corner I went and puffed up some stone steps where they were all sitting waiting for me in the hot sun. We pushed on the shop door and it opened with a creak. Clang, clang went the bell as we fell into the pitch-black room with a cold stone floor. It was a grave room with no sunshine. We were boiling hot from running and cycling and glad of the cold room at first. But as we stood waiting and waiting and waiting, we began to freeze and shiver. We could die in here and nobody would know. Staring into the gloom, we strained our ears until at last we heard a very faint shuffling. It was Miss Smith's slippers slowly getting nearer until she loomed up from the shadows. Miss Smith was our shopkeeper, and she reminded me of my old Victoria with her head covered in scarves and a serious look on her face. She looked very old and was going to die very soon. A bottle of sarsaparilla, a packet of crisps and some chewy, said Terry. Said chewing gum, said Mum, but we never remembered to say that. And what else? Said Miss Smith. But we hadn't got any money for anything else. We all just stood there staring at her. And what else? She said. Then suddenly Terry remembered in time to be respectful, and he said, please. And we all said, please, which was what Miss Smith had wanted all along. We fished our money out of our pockets and spread it out on the cracked wooden counter. I didn't mind spending my old penny, but I was quite sad to say goodbye to my young queen with her pretty ribbons in her hair. Now we had our picnic, and we took the bottle and packets and burst out through the door, glad to be in the sunshine again. We warmed up quickly, and we were all longing for a drink. We sat on the stone steps, and Terry went first with the sarsaparilla because he got there first, and I was last. When it was my turn, I grabbed the bottle and took great gulps. I wiped my mouth, and I loved the cold, fizzy sour taste going down my belly, and the bubbles came back into my mouth and up my nose. Then we all tried to belch, and I couldn't do it very well, and I couldn't put it on my what I'm good at list yet. But Terry was brilliant. Great big loud noises came up from his belly and out through his wide open mouth. We shrieked and laughed, and he did it again and again. I was jealous and determined to practice so I could be better than him. When we had finished, Terry took our empty bottle back to Miss Smith, and she gave him some money for the bottle, and so he bought us some more goodies. "Say sweets," said Mam, but we never remembered. Now we were on our way again, and we left my bike on the roadside grass and set off across our field to Gum Church, which was sitting on Green Hill. We went straight to the churchyard to read what it said on the gravestones, and there we found some very interesting inscriptions.